Hey guys, what's up? It's Glavian, and I heard through the grapevine, and I have to make that clear. I've only heard through the grapevine that some clever drug dealers, what they'll do is instead of selling drugs to their prospects right away, what they'll do is they'll instead give them free samples. And the reason why they give them free samples, although they lose the money up front for that sample, what they do instead is create a habit. They create addiction. They create a fiend in their prospect. Once the prospect is hooked on the drug, whether that's cannabis, whether that's cocaine, whether it's heroin or anything else, they know, the drug dealer knows that that prospect is going to turn into a client and they're going to come back again and again for a long period of time, and they're going to become more and more desperate. And as they become more and more desperate, they're going to be more and more willing to pay higher and higher prices. And so this is, exactly what happened to me and Blizzard. Blizzard was my dealer. And although that game cost money, Vanilla World of Warcraft back in the day cost money, I wasn't paying for that. My father was. And they hooked me in very young. I was 12 years old. And that was it. That was the cocaine, that was the heroin, that was the drug. And the problem is that Blizzard no longer deals. They have retail, which isn't vanilla. They even have classic, which isn't the experience. It isn't the feeling that vanilla was. And so the dealer has run dry. And so, of course, what do? I've been spending a lot of time looking for the elixir. Where is the elixir? And although you can never trod and walk into the same river twice, I have found the goods. I have found the stuff. And although it's not the original stuff, it's good enough. And of course, the game I'm talking about is Valheim. And so I started playing this game a couple of weeks ago, and I've been playing it with my brothers ever since. And it felt like the feeling that vanilla gave. And of course, me being me, I asked myself, why? And I really broke it down into three reasons and three components why Valheim feeling, right? It's not the same game, but it feels like vanilla. And the first reason is the sense of world. Now, vanilla gives you this sense of world, the sense of being this teeny little guy in this big, vast world that no other game since vanilla has really encapsulated for me. Now, open world games such as Breath of the Wild and such as Witcher 3 have come out since vanilla. Of course they have. But because of how accessible locations are and how easy it is to fast travel from place to place, that sense of world is kind of taken away from it. It doesn't feel so big when you can get anywhere in any amount of time. Now, with Valheim, it's similar to vanilla. Let me start with vanilla. And I'm going to take the example of a human because that's what I mained in that game. And as a human, you start in Elwyn Forest. If you go down to Duskwood too early, you're going to get clapped. If you go to... Did I say Duskwood? Yeah. If you go to Westfall too early, you're also going to get clapped. And if you go to Redridge too early, you're going to get clapped. And so your only option is to stay in Elwyn Forest until you are strong enough to then venture out into Westfall. And the fact that there is danger that surrounds you from all directions besides Stormwind creates the sense of you being surrounded by a hostile world, and that makes the world feel much bigger. And Valheim does this in a very similar way. You spawn into the meadows, which is, funnily enough, very similar to Elwyn Forest, both in theme and in ambiance and even in setting. And in any direction you take, you're going to eventually end up in the Black Forest, which is going to be hostile, and it's going to clap you until you're strong enough to handle it by getting stronger in the meadows. Now, that's one way that you maintain a sense of world and a sense of big open world in vanilla and in Valheim. Now, another way that these games create a sense of being in a world and giving you a sense of world is through the fact that they make you travel without fast travel or without any expedience, until you've earned it. Now, in vanilla, you can't go anywhere and you can't fly anywhere. You can't take any flight path until you've discovered that location first. And once you've discovered that location, now it's not like you're going to be fast traveling from location to location. No, you have to get on a griffin or you have to get on the flying beast and you have to take the scenic route all the way to your location. And it might take 2 minutes. It might even take 5. It could even take 10, depending on where you're flying to and from. And although it's more expedient, it's definitely faster than walking. It still takes some time, but what you gain from that instead is the feeling and the sense of open world that you would lose if you were just constantly fast traveling everywhere. And if you had to walk every time, that would eventually become tedious and you'd see the same scenes and sights over and over again. So they do throw you a bone with fast travel. With flight paths. And then, of course, at level 40, you get your mount. And the way that Valheim does this is slightly different, but it accomplishes the same thing. You can't go anywhere until you walk to that location and you discover it yourself and you trot through the dangers to get there. Now, once you've gotten to any particular location, you could put down a portal. And so that portal does act a little bit more like fast travel than the flight paths do. But Valheim is able to, counter that with making materials around any given place valuable. So although you can portal from place to place, the fact that you will be incentivized to continuously explore those locations anyway to get material for their crafting system, adds to that sense of world. So in the same way that you cannot take a flight path until you've walked there first, you cannot build a portal in Valheim until you've walked there first, and that adds to that sense of world. Now, the second reason why I think that Valheim feels so much like vanilla is because of something I'm going to call optional dependence. Now, in vanilla, the vast majority of people never reached level 60, and so leveling was the game for them. And in leveling, you can technically level completely solo, all by yourself, but the way that that game is designed incentivizes you to group up. So, in Elwyn Forest, you can take Hagar by yourself once you're level 10 or 11 or 12, but the gear that you get for killing Hagar is better for you at level 8 or 9. And so you're incentivized instead to group up with a couple people to kill Hagar to then get the gear that's going to be more valuable to you at a lower level, And I played Classic WoW with my 2 brothers, and I played a mage, one of my brothers played a paladin, and another played a warrior. And so going through Elwyn Forest again, sometimes I would get a piece of mail with some strength on it. I'd give that to my warrior brother. Sometimes my warrior brother would get a piece of cloth gear. He would give that to me. I'd make food for everybody. And of course, the paladin would heal us and give us buffs, and the warrior would serve as the tank. And so there's this symbiotic relationship that makes the game more enjoyable of an experience and builds camaraderie through the gameplay that you get with vanilla, that of course you will also get in Valheim. While one guy builds, another guy can go and gather. While one guy specializes in clubs, another guy can specialize in range, and then you could kite mobs, and one guy can be the tank. And you have situations where over and over again I might get some material that my brother can use, and he might get something that I could use. And in the same way that you can play vanilla all by yourself, the game incentivizes you and creates an experience that's more enjoyable when you play it in a group. And that's the second reason why I think that Valheim feels so much like vanilla does. Now, the third reason really just comes down to the fluidity of gameplay for its time, and even till today. Vanilla WoW had extremely fluid gameplay. Even things as minute and detailed as the jumping in that game felt really good. And the coding was smooth and everything kind of ran well. Now, although Valheim is still in early access, that game also is extremely smooth. For being in early access, it is incredibly low in bugs, and it has far less bugs and feels more robust and finished and polished than a lot of games, AAA games that come out, released, like Cyberpunk and a bunch of other ones. And they both have that cartoony art style, and I think that kind of, for whatever reason, it's been my experience that these cartoony art styles tend to make products and material that is more polished. I'm not sure why that is, but it does have that polish to it, and that gameplay does feel fluid, and it feels good to jump. It feels good to sprint. It feels good to hit. And because of these three things, one, the sense of world that very few games are able to pull off so well. Two, optional codependence. You can play by yourself, but you're not going to really want to because it's more fun to play with people because that's how the game is designed. And three, the fluidity of gameplay. Because of all these three things, I think that the experience that I get playing Valheim feels so much like vanilla. And that's all for this video. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.